Well, let's go ahead and we can get started. Um, just go. First, we mentioned it a little before we started, but I'll go over Paul's recorder's report. We had a Franklin's gull reported at Lake Yohola back in December, or the day after Christmas. The trumpeter swan, near 31st and Harvard areas. I think it was Zach Poland reported that. And a lesser goldfinch down in Sapulpa. And I think there was a photograph on the eBird list of that one. So some dark-eyed juncos reported, and a really late great egret at Mohawk Park. And of course, the great blackback gull.
Yeah,
That's been hanging out at Yohola. I've seen people saw it just today. So it's still hanging around. And a rose-breasted grosbeak, presumably at a feeder, just a couple days ago or last week.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
There was a redpoll reported today in Tulsa too. No picture, and there was 4 of them. So I don't know.
I wish they had a
didn't
picture.
make the cut. Yes, that would be nice.
Yeah, they need a picture of that one.
hey John, I think that trumpeter swan's been there a while. It's on like according to Pat Seibert, it's been there for a while. In that.
I remember that's what somebody mentioned. I had a report. Somebody called me today about a white owl, but it was in her. She lives down near 31st and Peoria area, which is pretty wooded. It was in her backyard, and she saw it at night, but it was pure white. But so it sounded like perhaps an albino barred owl or a leucistic barred owl, because she did not have any tufts, and barred owls would be the thing you'd see down that neighborhood anyway. But she accepted that. I think she was maybe thinking it was a snowy owl, but I said, a snowy owl would never be perched in a tree in a neighborhood. So she seemed to believe me on that one. Oh, and somebody had a flock of purple martins at their feeder last week too. By the way, I forgot to turn that one in.
Oh, thank you.
You got it now, Paul.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, no habla English.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else we've been seeing?
Not that I've heard.
Okay.
Of course, over in Stillwater, they had the red sapsucker for the longest time. Was there for about a month and a half, it seemed like. I never made it over there, but it was reported several times all the way up to the Christmas count, and then people stopped going over to look for it. But it was at the Botanical Gardens in Stillwater, but it was also, they said it favored a certain tree, but they never did say where that tree was. And all the eBird reports just showed it right in the center of the Botanical Gardens, which is where that just comes up. And so they had pictures, but I didn't go see it.
Interesting.
That's 3 miles from my house. I had no idea.
It came up on eBird a whole bunch of times, and Scott Loss or whoever is the one who found it, and it was a juvenile, and the nape was just barely red, but it was, and it had all the other characteristics about its throat patch and everything that would normally be a red-necked sapsucker. And for about 3 days, they reported it every day. Then I thought, well, I missed it. And then 2 weeks later, it come up again, and 2 or 3 people reported it. And then it got cold. And then the week of the count, they reported it. And then the count day, they reported it, and never since. I assume it's still there, but yeah, because if it was there a month and a half, I can't imagine it leaving. But I don't know.
Okay. We do have our on our upcoming events. Our Eagle Watch and Raptor Rally is February 19th. And I've actually got the times and stuff finalized from Christy. I'll get that posted on the website and the calendar. I mean, the date is out there, but I'll have the details out there later tonight. Mary, you want to talk about Doug Tallamy?
Oh, all right. Doug Tallamy is going to be here February 4th, going to be here in Tulsa at Jinx High School, signing books at 5, doing his presentation, Nature's Best Hope. Where am I? I can't see myself. Nature's Best Hope. So this is the book he'll be doing his presentation on.
Very good.
And then he'll be doing book sign for an hour afterwards also, or until we run out of people for books for people to sign. But we will also be selling books. We have books on sale for that event online at our website. Plus we'll have books on sale there at the event. The auditorium will seat 600 people, but we are asking that everyone wear a mask. And he'll be in Oklahoma City at UCO on Saturday at, I believe, 1 o'clock. He'll be signing books, and then 2 o'clock is his presentation, and then he'll be signing books before and after, same thing. And Oklahoma Native Plant Society will be selling his books there. So.
And if you pre-order the books through the Tulsa Audubon website, we made our prices a little bit cheaper than Amazon. So
yeah. And we do have a limited number of the oak ones. So we only have like 30 of those. His publisher did not have that many. So we only got 30 for the event for Tulsa, and they got 30 in Oklahoma City. Sorry, I'm sorry. Hey, John, in Oklahoma City, his book signing's at 1 to 2, and his presentation's at 2, and then he'll be signing books from 3 to 4. And it's out at UCO in Edmond.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you. Are there any other announcements or news we need to mention?
Yeah, with regard to the Raptor Rally, in conjunction with that, our February program will be on bald eagles, and it'll be given by the American Eagle Foundation out of Pigeon Forge. And look forward to seeing that then.
Oh, good.
And that'll be a Zoom meeting also.
That should be very interesting. Okay. Anybody have anything else to mention?
Oh, I could use some more volunteers for the Doug Tallamy event. So
Yes,
you can
yes, we need.
call or text me.
Yeah, we're gonna have a lot of people, so we need some people helping with just distributing the books and sort of managing everything with that. So, okay, if there's nothing else, Jay, I'll let you introduce Priscilla.
Okay. Well, it is my great privilege to be able to bring Dr. Priscilla Crawford to us tonight to talk about iNaturalist. She is a conservation biologist with the Oklahoma Biological Survey. She has worked in wildlife and habitat and conservation of those in Oklahoma for 20 years. She doesn't look like she's that old. But she has worked on things like woody plant encroachments into grasslands, historical spread of invasive species in Oklahoma, rare species surveys and distribution modeling of those, native plant and pollinator habitat restoration, biodiversity outreach, and she has also manages and has, I guess, since its inception, the Oklahoma Natural Areas Registry, which is a registry for private landowners to get their land marked as of special conservation interest. She also, for 14 years, has been running the Oklahoma BioBlitz program, which is now both in person and done digitally. And she has also spent 10 years working with lease terns on the Canadian River. She did 5 years. She spent doing surveys of invasive plants in every single one of the public lakes in Oklahoma. So she has been busy. She has also been a steadfast member of the Oklahoma Invasive Plant Council, for which I am forever grateful. She's been a past president and is still very active as a board member. Couldn't do without her there. And to top it all off, she's just really a nice person. She's really one of those in the pantheon of conservation in Oklahoma, as far as I'm concerned. So it's a great privilege for me to introduce Priscilla, and hopefully she's going to tell us a little bit about iNaturalist. That's something that I have really gotten interested in the last year. And it is just something that I have found, I don't know how I did without it for so long. So Priscilla, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thanks again for being here.
Well, thanks, Jay, for inviting me and that very generous introduction. Jay and I have known each other for almost the 20 years that I've been working in Oklahoma. So
Yeah.
I've worked on lots of projects with Jay, including the Invasive Plant Council, and I recognize a lot of your names and faces. Most of you I have met at some point. Digitally or in person, and most of you probably know my biodiversity outreach, the Oklahoma BioBlitz. And like Jay said, with iNaturalist, I don't know how we did BioBlitz before iNaturalist came around. So especially now, since we've done so many online things with the pandemic, and it's just a really valuable and super easy to use tool now, especially after the last few years of it getting improved each year. So I'm going to share my screen because I have a presentation. And hopefully all of you are seeing that.
Yes.
When Jay asked for a bio, I threw in as many bird references as I could. Most of you probably know that I'm not a birder by training, but I have done a few projects with the least tern and Bell's vireo and a few other things. So, and I tried to throw in as many bird photographs as possible. But as I'm sure most of you know, birds are difficult to photograph, and unless you have some very special equipment, it's hard to get a good picture. But this is a picture you could see here. It's a little eastern screech owl tucked into that little hole, which we found on my in-laws' property down in south central Oklahoma. So I'm going to talk about using iNaturalist because I think it's a really valuable tool. And you guys are probably, you've already talked about eBird a bunch. And so you're familiar with these global databases and how important they are for researchers. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about using iNaturalist. And since there's not a huge number of you, if I say something that you're confused about, feel free to interrupt and ask a question. There is, I have questions at the end, of course, that you can ask, but feel free to jump in if you're totally confused about something. Oh, and there we go. So what is iNaturalist? So similar to the eBird database, it's a worldwide database of research quality observations of all biological organisms. Everything from very small lichens and mosses up to, giant trees, and all of the taxa that you can think of. And not only is it observations of like living organisms, but you can do observations of things that are deceased. So there, you can see roadkill pictures. You can also put in tracks and nests. So those kinds of signs of organisms too. So not just pictures of the organisms alive. It's also a global community of scientists and naturalists, and that's one of the best features I think iNaturalist is, and it seems to come across a little bit better in iNaturalist versus eBird because these are people that can see your observations and make comments on them and help you to verify if you have correctly identified things, or if you have no idea what you saw, people can come in and help you identify those. And it's a community science platform for you to record your observations. You can record things within iNaturalist and not make them public, and just do it for your own learning purposes. So why should you use iNaturalist? One of the best things I find iNaturalist for, and even though I've been working in the state for 20 years, I don't know all the organisms. I don't even know all the plants, even though I'm a plant person. So sometimes taking a picture of something and having iNaturalist use its artificial intelligence algorithms to decide and help you to decide what you're seeing is really useful. So here I have this little bitty fungus that I took a picture of. And when I loaded it, this is the web interface. I'll show you some pictures of using the app, but this is if you're online. And if you just click on the species name before you even start typing in anything, it will compare your picture to all of the pictures within its database and come up with some suggestions. And a lot of the times it'll come up with the genus, the big group, and then give you some suggestions for what species it could potentially be. And then if you click on these little view links, it'll take you to a page that describes that actual species. So you can kind of see more pictures and get a better idea. So identifying unknown organisms, just like Jay said, is one of the most valuable things about using iNaturalist, in my opinion. Another reason is to get expert verification. Like I said, it's a community of amateur experts and professional experts. And here's an example of a observation I made. And I used the BioBlitz Oklahoma account. So I took this picture in Norman in my front yard one day, and then I don't know my bumblebees very well, so I I knew it was a bumblebee, and so I just labeled it as the bombus genus. Then John Asher, who who is a scientist at the American Museum of Natural History and an expert in some of these groups of organisms, came in and identified it for me. There are many experts on iNaturalist who, I don't know if they do this on their free time or as part of their public service as their job, but they will come in and do identifications for you. Amy Buteau, who is our botanist at our biological survey here at the University of Oklahoma, she will go in and identify plants for us when we have BioBlitz events. So we get a lot of observations by people who don't know what plant they're doing. They narrow it down to a goldenrod or a sunflower, and then she will go in and identify them. So you get expert verification from experts around the world who can help you identify things. It's a great tool to learn about your local area. So this is my observations in my neighborhood. Most of these are my observations right around my own house. You could see, but then you can also see observations from other people in your neighborhood if they've made them public. So in fact, I was cruising around the map one day of observations, and I found a cluster of observations just a couple blocks south of my house. And I was like, who is this person making all these observations? And I checked them out, and it turns out it's one of our regular BioBlitz participants, and he and I have gotten to know each other since we're in the same neighborhood now, and he's become our moth expert, Zach Dufran. So if you've come to BioBlitz or you've seen some of his moth nights, he's gone all across the state to do moth nights, and we got to know each other because I was looking at the iNaturalist observations in my neighborhood and learning about what he has seen in our neighborhood too. One of the things that is also very valuable for professional scientists is that the data that people put into iNaturalist, it helps contribute to research that we wouldn't be able to do without kind of utilizing all of the effort that citizen scientists put into it. And I'm sure as eBird users and people that know the Cornell lab and understand the importance of these long data sets collected by amateurs and amateur experts like yourselves, these are really important because we don't have the time, we don't have the money to collect this data at the geographic scale that we can with citizen scientists. And if people are making these observations anyway, putting them in these global databases can really help further our research. And so I've pulled up a few examples of things where people have actually published research on data collected in iNaturalist. So looking at butterfly populations and the decline across the last several decades, they used professional data, but they also used iNaturalist data for this research. So in addition to just like population trends, people have also looked at some of the photographs and were able to look at how wing color is affected by temperature by looking at pictures of dragonfly wings in different places that had different temperatures. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Also, being an invasive species person, I learning where invasive species are is really important. And iNaturalist is going to be one of the best ways for us to find new locations of pest species that are being introduced, because people are taking a picture of something they've never seen before and reporting it. And so that's really important. And using things like iNaturalist to report these is something that will be useful for all of the invasive things coming in over the next several years. And not only have people recorded new to the area species, but they're also using iNaturalist for learning about the invasive species as they arrive. So somebody set up a research program where the spotted lanternfly was being eaten. So the spotted lanternfly is a new arrived invasive species to the eastern United States. And this iNaturalist project was set up to record what native species were eating the spotted lanternfly, hopefully with an idea of maybe finding some control agents for this invasive insect. So some of the things we've been doing here in Oklahoma with iNaturalist data, Amy Butode and I have been kind of scouring the iNaturalist databases for some interesting finds. What are people out in Oklahoma finding that we didn't know about? So we have seen two terribly invasive species be reported, the garlic mustard and purple loosestrife. There are new locations having been recorded that we didn't know about. Amy and I are both on the Invasive Plant Council, and we are only a couple people that are able to report these invasive species because there's just not that many botanists that are professional in the state that are looking for invasive species. So having, a whole army of community science people reporting these things is really important, because there are only a few professionals out there looking for these things. But in addition to invasive species, we've also found people have reported new locations of rare species. So just in 2020 alone, there were 21 records of rare plants made by community scientists in locations that we weren't familiar with. So some of these rare species, they're not necessarily the ones that are federally endangered, but these are things that we consider state rare. So this is a rare milkweed. I've already forgotten the common name, but it's Asclepias like enothyroides. So I guess it's kind of like an enothera or evening primrose. I'm not sure why it has that name, but a rare milkweed, a western coral root, which is an orchid, and the Ozark chinkapin. Some of you are probably familiar with the American chestnut story. Chinkapins are related, they're in the same genus, and they are also affected by the chestnut blight. And people have recorded some new locations that we weren't familiar with for the Ozark chinkapin, one of the chestnuts. So why else should you use iNaturalist? Because it's fun and it's motivating. A lot of people like to think of it as a kind of a gamified way to submit observations. You can keep track of your own observations, how many species you're collecting. I mean, how many of you have life lists for birds and you check them off? I think Jay just mentioned I only got one lifer on this big trip. So this is something that kind of motivates a lot of people who make observations around the state. So you can like set yourself goals, like I'm going to record 100 new species this year, or I have a friend who is going to record 100 species in her yard this year. That's her 2022 goal. So it's fun and motivating, and you can join projects such as BioBlitz Oklahoma. This year we're doing 4 seasonal BioBlitzes. So each season we're going to take a week and set a project up on iNaturalist, and here on your screen you see the project front page for the winter one. So winter we're doing 7 days, January 28th through February 4th, and we are going to count as many things across the state as possible. Anything that gets observed in iNaturalist within the state boundaries during that week will be added to our project. So it starts in 9 days. So I encourage all of you to join. If you join, we will send you one of the cute little stickers that we made for this year. Bird-wise, it has the junco on it, which is my favorite winter bird. And we will send you a sticker, which is fun and motivating. So I've shown you some pictures of the web interface, but most people use it on the iPhone or on their smartphone, so not just the iPhone. And it's very easy to make observations. There are lots of tutorials. I just took this screenshot from the tutorial that's on the iNaturalist website. You take a picture, you add it, you start typing in what you think it might be, and it will give you suggestions based on the photograph. If you've made your photographs on your iPhone or your smartphone geo-referenced, it'll automatically know where you're standing when you took the picture, and you simply upload it. And I'll give you some tips about using the app. But a lot of you are birders, and a lot of you probably have those fancy cameras that I was talking about, and have a lot of beautiful photographs of birds that you could add. So I'm going to show you how you can upload a photo on the iNaturalist website after you've downloaded them from your camera. So I'm going to switch screens now to the website. Oops, that's not what I want. Okay. Switch screens. So if you don't already have a iNaturalist account, this will be the first thing you see. And setting up an account is really easy. I know I'm so tired of setting up accounts online, but it is very easy. And if you get hacked, it's not like you need a super secure password. So this is the login for my account, and you see you get this dashboard, but to upload any observations, you click this big green button up at the top, upload. And then you just drag your photos in. I have a few photos here on my desktop that I'm going to drag in. Let's see, we will start with something that's pretty, like something I already know. Let me make this smaller so hopefully that'll make it kind of bigger on your screen. So here we have some milkweed bugs that I took in my front yard. And it says loading metadata, but there's very little metadata associated with this because I took it with my fancy camera that it's not so fancy that it has a GPS in it, but it does record the date and time, and so but it doesn't have the location. So I'm going to show you how you can uh, put the location in for the photos that you upload. And this is for Ray too. So you can go back and you can edit your location so you don't report things from a totally different area accidentally. So you search for your location. So I am my address. My address. So I'm in Norman, Kansas Street, Norman. And it will put this boundary around, like if I put in like an address of a house, and it'll put in this boundary so that if you are concerned about privacy, you don't have to have it really accurate. You could change the accuracy down here to be greater or smaller depending on your level of comfort related to that, but it's super simple to find your location. If I had taken this at a state park, so let's say I took this at Lake Thunderbird, you just type that in, and then it'll take you, and it'll give, because I wasn't very accurate with my my name, it also just puts a circle around the entire state park. And so you can zoom in based on where you want, and you want to make sure that you make your little circle a little smaller. But it's very user-friendly, very easy to use if you've done any of these kind of web interfaces before. So you update your observation, and it will put the information there. And then for the species name, we'll show you here, it's loading suggestions. And then it believes it's in this genus, and then it suggests that it could be the large milkweed bug, it could be the false milkweed bug, and you could look at these pages to figure out which one it is. And you'll also see why it's suggesting this. Not only does the picture look like it, but it's also been seen nearby, and it's visually similar. So you can click on that, and it brings up the database of this particular species. Let me make this a teeny bit bigger. And you'll see that all sorts of cool information, when it's been recorded over time. You can also get a map of observations. You get many more pictures to compare it with, and it's just a wealth of information. So the database in iNaturalist is really good just to learn about species too. It's a fantastic field guide, as well as being a way to put in your information.
Priscilla, on
Yes.
when you're showing the view of a particular species, you can put in a location there like Oklahoma, which I usually do is put the state.
Oh yeah, here.
And it will then only show how many times it's been seen in Oklahoma.
Yeah, so you can filter just like, and when it's been seen in Oklahoma, last observation was back in December. So
And if you want to see
and
where in Oklahoma it's been seen, you can click on View All and go to the map.
yeah, so here's the map, and there are all the observations. It's a very common species in our region. So that's one observation. And then here, let's add another one, one I didn't necessarily know. So here I've loaded a picture of a caterpillar, and one of my tips is to add more than one picture. If you have different angles, especially for plants, if you have a picture of the flower and the foliage and the entire plant, it's really useful to have more than one photo per observation. So here I have that picture, and then I have this other one. And so it's loaded both pictures. There's the other picture. Oh, I must have taken this with my iPhone because it knows where I was when I took it. And then it's loading suggestions. It's suggesting some sort of tiger moth. It's best if you have no idea what you're looking at to go with the wider range. I know amongst the birders, sometimes you have people who are always reporting the rare things, the things that you never think are going to be there. And then some people that are always reporting like, well, it was some sort of duck. So I'm in this some sort of duck. So at this point I would probably choose something that's the broader name, and then hope that there's an expert out there that's willing to come in and make a verification or help me determine what it is. So I'm not going to submit these because these are duplicates of things I've already submitted. So I'm gonna remove those. Let's see. Let's go back to my little presentation. So that's how you do it if you've loaded your pictures onto the from your camera onto your computer. Oh, and I showed you how to do the identification. So like I mentioned, some tips. Load multiple pictures. Like I said, a picture of the flower, a picture of the foliage, a picture of the whole plant, sometimes the whole plant and the habitat. If it's a woody species, you would want a picture of the bark and the leaves. If there's a fruit of some sort, like an acorn, anything you have that will help to identify it and verify it. Some other tips when you're making observations. So allow georeferencing of your photos. So probably what happened with Ray is that it didn't georeference the photo where he took it, but when he uploaded it. So you could change the settings in your phone. I know a lot of people are concerned about privacy. But you can also change the setting just within the iNaturalist app. So while you're using the app, it will know where you are versus changing all of your settings on your phone. Also, if you have a data plan on and you're using the app and you're concerned about using too much data, you could take pictures of things and then set it and upload them to iNaturalist, and they will to only sync on Wi-Fi. There's a setting within iNaturalist that says only upload when you're using Wi-Fi and not on your cellular data. So that's important. I know in my family, we have a family plan and we're always running out of data. So I have it set to sync only when it's on Wi-Fi. And then you can just take pictures on your phone and then upload them to iNaturalist when you have time. Like, I know I don't want to sit through and go through the whole screen process. Like if I'm out on a hike and I'm just moving through and I don't want to have to make the iNaturalist record, so I will take pictures. Those pictures are georeferenced on my phone, and then when it's dark and I'm sitting back at home and I don't have anything else to do that's fun, I will upload them at that point. iNaturalist has lots of online help if you're having any troubles using the apps or using the website. This is a picture of the website. Under the More tab, there are all of these items. help uh, help files, frequently asked questions, video tutorials. If you're interested in using it with students or at a nature center, there are some suggestions on how to use it as a learning tool. I use it with my college students regularly. They love it. This is one of their kind of like course long projects that they have to make so many observations and they have to be across a different number of taxa. And I give out a small prize at the end for the person who's made the most species observations. And it can be a pretty heated competition sometimes. So that's it. I thought I would end with this super chilly picture. We were all talking about how cold it's going to be at the end of this week. If only we could get some pretty snow occasionally. This picture was taken just up from the hill from that tree that had the eastern screech owl. This was a couple days later after it snowed down in Garvin County. I encourage you all to participate in the BioBlitz. There's no cost. It's totally free. If you sign up to receive a sticker, we will send you a sticker for free. They're great for your laptops or your water bottles. They're very popular with teenagers and college students right now, these stickers. You can also they're waterproof, so you can put them on whatever car or your bike or whatever. And so I'll take any questions. I can also go back to the website and show you things if you have questions about that.
Priscilla, the cost?
There's no cost for anything. So the app is totally free. Being a member on iNaturalist is totally free. There's no cost to participate in the online BioBlitzes. So it's all free and fun.
Priscilla,
Yes.
I figured out how to edit my observation.
Excellent.
It wasn't as intuitive as I thought. Like, I went to the map, and again, I had seen it in Oregon, but I somehow mapped it while I was in Washington. So I clicked on that map and was trying to, move. I was able to move to Oregon, but I couldn't like put the pointer down in the new spot. And instead there was some little button in the upper right of the screen that I had to hit in the upper right of the window. And when I did that, edit observation was a choice.
Okay.
It was easy enough. But just so people know, if you mess up, you can fix it later. But you have to know what you're doing. But I think that's the only one I've messed up like that. So now I have a question for you, because after I made that observation, it was a special find, and I looked today, and there are all these comments from all these moth experts saying, "Oh, this is so exciting," and all this stuff. So now that I've changed it, it's a much less interesting sighting. I want them to know that. Is there a way to notify them?
Yeah, so because they have, I'm gonna switch the screen here. You can communicate with people on iNaturalist, which is fun. And I have done so with some of the people that have replied to my observations. So let's just go back to the main dashboard. So here in community, you can look up people with this tab. So if you can just search by people's names and things. I don't find that particularly useful. What I find useful is so these little icons up here. So here is like a male symbol. Apparently, I have 3 unread mails that I guess I should check. And this is the comment symbol. So here, I'm going to click on these, and here are all the comments people have made on my observations or other things that I have identified. So let's find an interesting one here. So I made an observation of this little wasp back in October. So this is during our fall bio blitz. I made this wasp observation. I'm not a wasp expert, but I narrowed it down to a particular genus. And then this person, Matthias 22, narrowed it down to a species for me. So if I wanted to contact him, you just click on his name and you can send him a message right there.
You can
So,
also see his credentials and
oh
expertise.
yes. Yeah, if they have put in a lot of information about themselves, you will see a little bio here. So this person obviously knows what he's doing. And he also has this status called curator. And that's an important designation that iNaturalist gives you. Amy Butode, who I've mentioned multiple times, my colleague and friend who's a botanist here in my department, she has looked into also becoming a curator, but it's actually a fairly rigorous process that you have to go through. So this means that he has gone through this process. He actually knows what he's doing. And he is the assistant curator for invertebrates at the Royal Alberta Museum in Edmonton, Alberta. So, so he has come in and told me what I found, and I will believe him and I will agree with him. Another thing that you will see too is that when 2 people agree on an observation, it becomes research grade, which is kind of a nice designation. So it means that 2 people had to say, yes, this is what it was. And then it kind of elevates the status of that observation. So to get research grade observations, you need to put in pictures that are identifiable for the experts, and then an expert has to come along and go through your things. But so probably what you have, Ray, on your observations is that there are multiple people said like, wow, this is super cool, and so you can just go through and contact them. You can leave one big comment because people should be able to get a notification, depending on how they set up their notifications, that you also commented on something they commented on. But if you really want to just tell them straight out, sending them a quick message is probably the best way. And yeah, and I've gotten to know a few of the experts and got some advice on bee identification. There's a person, I think out of Texas Tech, who does bees for us. But now we have a new bee biologist at the Biological Survey, which is super cool. Dr. James Hung is one of our newest biologists, and he is a native bee expert. So I'm hoping to learn a ton from him over the next summer, when this will be his first full summer coming up.
Priscilla, if you identify it to species, and then somebody comes on, an expert comes on and says, yep, I agree with that, that becomes the 2 that make it research grade. So you really just need one other person to verify if you have it right to start with.
What usually happens for me, though, is somebody comes in and says, no, no, no.
Yeah.
You are sorely mistaken. This
I
is
know
what it
that.
really is.
Yeah.
So that's why I've actually been scolded by a few experts. They're like, if you don't know what you're looking at, just do it to genus. And I was like, okay. So that's something I've learned to do is, and you'll see that if you kind of scroll through any of I've learned just to go to genus and let the experts do the species levels. And sometimes you can't. I mean, sometimes some species are not identifiable by photographs down to species. There are things that you have to have in the hand, and you have to look at the hairs on the and the genitalia. There's all sorts of insects that you need to look at, all sorts of intimate parts for to get to the species level.
And if you click on Matthias's profile again,
Yes.
you can see there his identifications. He's identified 86,000 iNaturalist observations, whether it's on bees or wasps or whatever.
Right.
So with that many, you can pretty well bet he knows his stuff.
Yeah, otherwise he probably at this point, if he didn't, they would have kicked him off.
Yeah. Now, if you see somebody with 10 that disagrees with you, don't necessarily go with them. But if you see somebody that's got 15,000 or whatever, they probably know their stuff.
And a lot of, I mean, if the experts are on the iNaturalist platform, it means that they want to help people learn. So these people are willing to, chat with you over the message board or, comment back and forth. These are people that are interested in furthering community science, so they want to participate. So don't feel like you're bugging them because they're on there to help people.
Priscilla, I'm looking at Oxley Nature Center on the map, and so what do all the different colors? Are those like plants are green or?
Yeah. Yeah, so let's look at the map. Let's explore. So yes, the different colors. Let's see.
You can actually put in a location for Oxley Nature Center, Oklahoma.
Yeah. Let's see. My internet's a little slow. Let's see what happens here. Oh yeah, here we go. Yeah, so the different colors represent the different taxa. Ah, look at all of them. That's great. And right here, so you can, if you zoom in enough and you can click on individual pins and it'll bring up what observation it was. So
And
even if
again,
you don't make observations yourself, you just use iNaturalist as a tool to explore your area, it's really valuable.
if you want to see what's seen at a place, if it's something of interest to you, you can click and see if it's actually been identified there before. And you can specify the individual species you're looking for, and it'll show you whether it's been recorded there or not. And you can also type in a species and put in location Oklahoma. And for me, for instance, that might be a specific tiger beetle. And I can go in and I can see where that tiger beetle's been seen in Oklahoma. So I want to go there to try to see it too.
Yeah, we targeted some invasive species. We were thinking, well, are there ways that we could like do some eradication of some of these? So we did searches for some of the invasive species that we're concerned about. We've also we've used this as a tool to kind of figure out what we would expect to be there. So if you're planning a field trip of some sort and you're not just doing birds, you also want to talk about the plants that are flowering at that time. You can do filters. The filter function is really cool. So you can do what kind of organisms you're interested in. So if you're interested in fungi and lichens, if you're interested in anything that's like going to be bloom, somebody took a picture in June. So things like mushrooms you might see in June at the Oxley Nature Center. So you can do that. Oh, and so here are two. So somebody made a observation of some maybe lichen.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a little mushroom too. So you can do all sorts of cool filtering. I've found this a useful tool when I'm planning like a field trip and what plants are we expecting to see at this site. So I kind of like am able to do a little homework before I take students someplace. Any other questions?
So you might look at, show people the listing functions, because you can almost make a life list on iNaturalist also.
Sure can.
Oh, yeah. So here are my observations that I have made, and you can make it into a list. I don't do this very often, but yeah, you birders like your lists. So here I made 420 observations. Actually, I have more than one iNaturalist account, just to let you know. 260 species. I've identified, 130 different people have helped me identify things. And I've just been the one observer. But so that can help you generate these lists. If you click on the arrow that was next to species, so here are all the species I have observed. Oh, alligator weed. That's my top species I've observed. Oh, that's sad. That's one of our invasive species that's in the McClellan Kerr waterway. So keep a lookout in Tulsa. I suspect it's up there too in the Arkansas River navigation system. And then I'm trying to learn my bees, so I have lots of bees here too. So yeah, you can make your own personal lists. You can make lists like this for geographic areas. So if you're one of the naturalists at the Oxley Nature Center, you can make lists of things that people have observed in your area. And then these pictures, some of these pictures, actually, all of these pictures are the picture that is associated with. These are not my pictures, is what I'm trying to say. These are the pictures associated with the species account in iNaturalist. So so they are the kind of like a very nice picture of each species. So you can even like generate these kind of picture lists if you want to give them out to people that are volunteering in your area or people that are going on a field trip with you.
Well, if you go to your observations and do the list, go back just to the main iNaturalist square up there. Yes, that. and then it says list down to the right. It will give you like that
Oh,
dynamic life list. And then you don't have to make a whole bunch of separate lists anymore. If you go this way, it will break everything down taxonomically. And so you can see how many mammals you've had, how many beetles, how many fish that you've actually turned in. And I find that the best thing to use because I keep a native fish list, and I just have that all in there. And everybody else can see it also.
oh, okay, that's cool. Yeah, no, I don't do the list stuff very often, although I should because we generate these kinds of lists for the BioBlitz projects. Oh, and let me show you
And
that.
all those pictures on this list are your pictures. They're not the stock photos, which may be good or bad.
Yeah, I'm looking, I was like, well, I guess yeah, I guess that one maybe
Yeah,
is
so
not.
say if you turn in a lot of blurry photos, it may be better to have the stock photos, but if you want to just have all your photos on your pictures, this is the way to do it.
Yeah, and so I mentioned projects a few different times because we have a BioBlitz project, and what a project does is just aggregate um, iNaturalist observations. Somebody asked me recently, like if they make observations in iNaturalist, no matter if you join, because you can join a project and become a member, but even if you don't join, your observations during the BioBlitz week will be added. So projects are kind of hard to find. So if you want to join our iNaturalist project, I would recommend that you go to our website, um, the BioBlitz website. But here, I'm going to jump to it right here. So we have an iNaturalist project. It will start in 9 days, and the boundaries are uh, the state boundaries. So anything in Oklahoma here. Oh yeah, here's the state, and then all of the observations during that week. And we have we have set up other projects. So we have done spring month-long spring bioblitzes, and we also do the fall weekend. So let's look at the fall weekend from last year. During a 3-day period, we had 362 people making observations, and we recorded a little over 1,300 species during BioBlitz. We have, and what's fun about the projects is that it will list like our top observers, who made the most observations, who made the most species, which species were the ones that were observed the most. The monarch was winning all throughout the whole weekend, but then somebody uploaded a bunch of observations at the very end of a grasshopper. So the grasshopper beat out the monarch. I was rooting for the monarch. But then we had the garden spider, Virginia creeper. We had a nice selection of insects this past year. So it's a fun way, and we could go through the stats, but you can do that on your own. But it's a fun kind of sort of competition. We have given out prizes in the past. I don't think we're not giving out prizes this year, except for everybody who participates gets a sticker. And then if people participate in all 4 seasonal online BioBlitzes, we we will have a drawing for all of those people. Everybody will get a very small prize for participating in all four, and then we'll have a drawing and have a gift basket of made in Oklahoma products for one of the people that participate in all four of the BioBlitzes, our Superior BioBlitz Award. Any other questions?
Yep. Priscilla, I want to create a project, and I see where I go on iNaturalist to create a project. So I won't go into the nitty gritty of that, but once I create it, and now this projects I want to create, I'm responsible for coming up with nectar plant lists for monarch butterflies in numerous states. Right now, South Carolina and Georgia. So I want to know, I want the people in Georgia to be out there looking, not at this time of year, but in spring, summer, and fall, to be looking for monarchs and to be reporting what native plants they're nectaring on. So I could create something called monarch nectar plants in Georgia. And I just looked, there are no projects at all on monarch nectar plants anywhere in the country from what I could tell. So, okay, I create that project. How is anybody in Georgia going to find out about it? I have to advertise by some other means, right?
Right. So, or you allow any observation that's made in Georgia to be added to that project. And the way you could narrow it is if you narrowed it to observations just of monarchs or just of flowering plants. So you can set up your project to be certain groups of taxa. I have never done something quite so specific. I have done it for like pollinators, just kind of as a test run for a class, so that people could only submit insect observations. But I think you can even narrow it down to a particular species.
You can add that to the rules for that project.
Yeah.
And just say it must be this species of insect, and then any flowering plant.
Cool. Very cool.
Now, you would want to advertise to people that this is out there. I mean, kind of like we do with the BioBlitz. Like, I tell everybody to participate, but again, we're also kind of like gathering all of the data that gets put in, even if people have no idea that a BioBlitz is going on. If they make an observation in their backyard and they set it to be a public observation, it pops up in our BioBlitz project. So you would want to set it so that you didn't have to join that any observation within your parameters is added. But then to make sure that you get like flowering plants that are flowering, and then that monarchs go to, yeah, you would want to tell people. That's trickier.
I don't think I can filter for that. And the funny thing, I've filtered for monarch butterflies in the state of Georgia, and there are hundreds of records, and you can find dozens and dozens of photos of monarchs on flowers.
And they're all tropical milkweed.
No, some are. That's a good guess. Some are tropical milkweed, but of the native plants, 99% of the people don't identify the plant that the butterfly's on. It's a monarch, but they care about the monarch. They don't care about the plant.
Right.
So then it's my job to identify this plant in Georgia, which luckily I lived in North Florida, so I have some knowledge of the botany of the region, but it's hard. So,
Yeah.
So I guess that's the beauty of advertising, is that you let people know, hey, I want pictures of monarchs on plants and tell me what the plant is. But I don't know if that's possible.
It
Like,
is.
Well, you can upload the same picture for two different observations. So people could upload it for the monarch and then upload it again for the plant. Oh, did Ray?
Yes, that's
is
true. I've done that.
It looks like Ray's
I think
frozen.
froze. Yep.
Okay, I was making sure it wasn't me. But oh, I was thinking about something else related to Ray's issue. Oh shoot, what was I thinking? Um oh, I've forgotten. But yeah, Ray's situation is unique and tricky. You can also set up projects like just for your own like neighborhood if you want to keep track of that. But then maybe that list function, there's that's a good way to your personal life list. You could probably narrow it down geographically so you get like in my neighborhood versus like my vacations kind of thing.
Priscilla, in the comments, somebody asked, no rocks or fossils allowed. Is that right?
Yeah, rocks are not biological organisms. Fossils, I'm not sure about fossils. We have like we have had this conversation about in BioBlitz, and we have allowed some fossils in, mostly because we had some geological experts come and give presentations. And we also, when we were out at Black Mesa, we included, since you can include tracks as evidence, we included the dinosaur tracks just kind of for fun. But I don't, yeah, I suspect that fossils are not allowed within the iNaturalist, and definitely not rocks, just as a rock. But tracks and nests, bones, I have posted bones in
I
the
put skulls
past.
in, yeah.
Yeah, skulls for sure. Um, I'm surprised at how well some of the experts are able to identify things that I that I would have no idea that that's identifiable. Yeah, I wasn't looking at the chat. Oh, I like thanks Rebecca. It was nice to see your name up. We have several of the people on the call are longtime BioBlitz volunteers, and so I really appreciate all the assistance they've given at all of our in-person and online events over the last 14 years that I've been running the show.
So I could go back and add stuff from like last fall and last summer if I have like
Yes.
some
Yes, for
butterfly.
sure. And in fact,
Okay.
people, I would encourage like for people that have, slides of things from a long time ago, I have seen some really old observations. People have uploaded images, you know, historic images to the database. So if that's a way you want to spend your time, then feel free to do that. If you have good metadata, so dates and locations for that for those images.
Okay.
I've done that as far back as 10 years for trips that I've made different places.
So like even stuff around the world, Jay, have you done that
I
for?
just put in all my stuff from India, yeah.
Wow.
And I've got
Yep,
people,
it's a global database.
they are almost all already designated research grade, and had people from India and Russia and other places being the ideas. Really neat.
So when you say research grade, then people will use them for projects then, for
Yeah,
project research? Okay.
And if it's a plant that you've planted or that has been planted, or if it's a captive animal, then you should designate that in your observation, and they'll call it casual. And then people won't spend a lot of time trying to figure out what it is for science out in nature.
That's actually the point I was going to make with Ray, is that probably a lot of the monarch sightings that he was seeing too on plants, those plants are probably in gardens that were planted. So there is a little box to check both on the app and on the web interface that says cultivated or domesticated. So, if you took pictures of your backyard chickens, you should check the domesticated or captive. And then that's really helpful, especially for scientists. One of the things that I've been trying to figure out is the extent that the tropical milkweed has been kind of naturalizing in systems. So we're concerned that potentially tropical milkweed will become an invasive species. They're already kind of seeing this happen, maybe in South Texas, and I think I've seen reports in iNaturalist of it naturalized maybe as far as north as Denton. So, but nobody has recorded that those are in their gardens. But sometimes you can get a clue based on the picture, because you see like garden soil underneath, or something like that. But making sure you designate those cultivated things. You can still report them, just make sure you designate them as something that you planted.
And the artificial intelligence will try to identify it, even if it is a garden plant.
Well, okay, so yeah, because I'm just looking at stuff from Flycatcher Trail. There's been a couple observations of plants there, but we've planted everything that's there.
Yes.
There you go.
It starts to get into that gray area when you're doing restoration in natural areas, and those things were planted, but they're technically native species, and so that's the gray area, really.
Okay.
But if it's a native species planted in a place that it wouldn't normally naturally occur, then that's probably planted.
Yeah, that's the tricky bit.
I don't know if you
Priscilla,
saw,
go ahead, John.
did you see another question about, are there any unintended consequences you're aware of, such as being scolded,
Yeah, I have been scolded by the experts, but it's always most people are very nice. It's only been a couple people that kind of like put me in my place trying to identify bees, and now I know, yes, that was inappropriate for me. Some things that I know some people might be concerned about, I just like typed in my address and pulled up my obviously my yard. I'm not so concerned about privacy. Some people would be concerned about that. Also, if you're concerned about reporting things that may be considered rare, the iNaturalist will kind of make that location fuzzy, or just to give it a much broader area, because
Oklahoma. Yeah.
yeah, or it'll show it just for the county. So if you report like a whooping crane, and you put it in iNaturalist, and you have a pin where where it was standing, iNaturalist will make that a vaguer representation of its location. And so it has a list of species that it does that for. I don't know who decides on those lists, because some of the things that we report in Oklahoma we're a little bit concerned about. So if you're concerned about somebody finding that species and harassing it or digging it up or whatever, you can make that location the accuracy much bigger, like you saw in that red circle, so that if you're worried about that potentially happening.
Just report it in the county. Not
Yeah, or just
necessarily
report
a
it in the
specific
county.
place. Yeah. Couple other quick points, Priscilla. People on the call here, they can also act as ideas. If they have an expertise in something, or if they learn about something, you can go on and try to explore for certain species or certain locations. And you can act as an idea too. If it's,
Yes.
simple things that most of them you may not know, but you say, oh, well, hey, I know what that one is. You can be the ID person that puts that in there saying, yep, I agree.
Yeah, and that's a useful thing. Another way that you could like provide a service to people, and I know that many of you are experts, especially with the birds. So what you can do is you can explore and say you explore within Oklahoma, but within this filter, you can look for things that need identification. That's one of these check boxes over here. So needs identification, say, and you're the bird expert, so you could click on birds that need identification and it updates the search. And so here we have a tufted titmouse that was recently reported. It's not, and you can go in and say, yes, I agree, that's a tufted titmouse. And it's very simple to help with identification. All you do is click this button here that says agree. Or if you're like, no way, that's I can't even make up a name. Uh, that's a juniper titmouse because that's not the right location or whatever. Then you can make a suggestion and fill out that here. Now remember we checked the identifiers bios. So if you start doing this a lot, you may want to make your bio sound like you know what you're talking about. Like, hi, I'm John and I've been identifying birds in Oklahoma for 25 years. And so I'm a president of this and this. And so you want to make sure that if you're going in, but sometimes it's really useful to have people come through. I go through and identify plants when I can. I rely on Amy a lot to do that. But if you have any expertise in like dragonflies or butterflies or moths, it's really useful to go in and help people identify them and then have them become research grade.
Somebody we all know, Bill Carroll, does a lot of IDs for tiger beetles and dragonflies and butterflies and all that. So,
so what does that like add to projects down there on the right mean? So those are
so this observation was of a wildlife species. So there are already these projects: Birds of Oklahoma, Birds of the World, Oklahoma Wildlife Showcase. So somebody has set up these projects to accumulate observations, just like I have done with BioBlitz, to accumulate any wildlife that's observed in the state, any bird that's observed in the state, any bird that's observed in the world gets accumulated into these projects. You can also designate a project, like say it's not automatic for it to be added to a project. So maybe you have your own personal project and you want to type in that there. But the ones like BioBlitz and the when other ones, they will automatically be added and they'll be listed like these.
Okay.
And there are tons of projects, and you can go through them and search them for things that you particularly might be interested in. Again, I've done several for tiger beetles, and there are different projects for tiger beetles in Oklahoma or tiger beetles in Texas or whatever. So you can accumulate those projects that you want to contribute to. One I do is wasps as pollinators. So whenever I have a wasp that's acting as a pollinator, it's not automatically included in there, but I check it as one that I want to include that particular photo for. So you can add them to projects as you see fit.
Okay.
One other thing I've done, Priscilla, is I've tried to accumulate a list of experts that have ID'd some of my stuff. So if I see there's an expert in spiders and I look at their bio and they've done 80,000 spider IDs and they seem to know what they're talking about, then I add them to my list of things. So then when I have something that I want to ID, I can reference it to them specifically in the comments, and it'll go to them and they'll see it. And it's up to them whether they want to respond or not. But
Yeah, and it can act a little bit like social media in that way. So you can make comments back and forth. You can also follow people. So Dawn27, who's made this lovely titmouse observation, I can follow him, and so that I'll get notifications when he posts things. And there are some people, I'm not active in the kind of the back and forth community that way on iNaturalist, but you can be, and some people are, and that's really useful for them, especially if they find somebody who has similar interests, like just like Jay, like, oh, I love tiger beetles and this person does too. Let's be iNaturalist friends, and you kind of communicate those uh those interests through this platform.
in fact, an example right here, the middle one, Alex at Cicindela, he is a tiger beetle expert. He's a student in Oklahoma at OSU. And he knows that stuff inside and out. And whenever I put anything in that's a tiger beetle in Oklahoma, he's got it identified or verified or saying, no, it's not that, before I get through doing my entries for the day. So it gets the attention of people that are interested in those things and they look for them.
Yeah, and this seems to be a really great platform for people who have that kind of natural historian kind of bug to themselves. Like, we don't do like intricate field journals anymore. If people are making observations, it's through things like this. And this is, here I clicked on him. He's made over 100,000 observations, and he's obviously very interested in this group of taxa.
He's made identifications.
That's what I meant. Identifications.
He did all your grasshopper stuff. He's on grasshoppers distribution in Oklahoma.
Yeah,
well,
so
just because that's what they're studying, that may not be all that they're interested in. That's the case a lot of times.
Yeah, you often study what they have money for.
Well, if there's no other questions or comments, this has been fantastic.
Oh, good. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I'm
Just exactly. what-
signed up while we're talking here. So
Yay.
So what is Bill's? Is Bill like Dragonfly Hunter or something?
It's a
Jay?
dragonfly name.
It's Arrowhead Spiketail. He was
Yep.
just on that,
Oh, yeah.
that deal.
Yep,
Here
He's
it
right
is.
there.
That's him. Okay.
There's Rubitsky 49. Who is that?
Yeah, it looks like a small Pomeranian to me. I think his name was Ted.
So Bill has 89,000 IDs
wow.
In 5.
and 7,600 observations and 1,800 species.
Wow.
Wow.
Huh.
Yeah, Bill has been one of our prolific BioBlitz participants.
Okay.
Priscilla, it was perfect. Thank you.
Good.
Yes, it was very good.
Yes.
Thank you.
I look
Thank you
forward
so
to
much.
seeing all your
Yeah.
observations in a couple in 9 days.
Okay.
Gonna have to warm up a
Okay.
little bit.
Well, thank you everybody for participating, and I hope
Very
you all come
good.
back next month to. I think that's going to be really cool about the Eagles. So
Well, thank you, John, for setting this up.
you're welcome. Okay. Well, we'll end the meeting here. So everybody
Thanks,
take care.
Priscilla.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you.